Please don't bark, cause Millie bite back.
What does that even mean?
What does it even mean? It's not for you,
I
baby.
gotta freaking look it up.
Welcome to Coffee and Tequila, guys. Is this the state of the show that we do now? Is open the episode and we're immediately pulling the cap off the bottle. Here's your wine, baby. We say, hey, welcome to Coffee and Tequila, guys. We're here to
So it's from Flo Millie Bobby Brown.
Flo Millie. Oh, did you look it up?
Yes.
Oh, this is perfect. Guys, we are about to have welcome to Coffee and Tequila, the Friday Night Late Show. My name is Zach.
My name is Alastair.
And we are being treated right now to a lyric reading of Conceited by Flo Millie, a reading by Alastair J. Patton.
Gosh. Feeling myself, I'm conceited. Huh? Yeah. Feeling myself, I'm conceited. Huh? Yeah. You want a model, bitch. All for the internet. All that keen. I ain't into that. All my mini-me's, I invented that. Facts. Long ass weave flow down my back. Hoes don't like when I talk like that. Please don't bark, cause Millie bite back. Grr.
Good job, baby. Good job. You look so uncomfortable.
It's just not meant for me.
You're like sweating a ton, too.
That's always me. Right now, I'm just sitting in here sweating, just waiting for fall. So, and today, so I apologize. I do not have a cocktail for us today. So I broke out this old bottle of wine that we got from moving in here.
Okay.
Called Stella Rosa.
Pulled right off of the top of the refrigerator.
Yes, we forgot we even had it.
Lean back a little bit. You're talking like too close to it.
And let me tell you, if you do not like normal red wine and you want something cheaper, sweeter, and less alcoholic, this is the way to go.
Oh, no. Let me see.
I'll be honest, I'm probably not going to drink it.
That tastes like old grape juice that was sitting in the refrigerator.
Tastes like sparkling juice gone wrong.
It's not good. It's not good. Welcome to Coffee and Tequila, the Friday Night Late Show. As always, this episode is kindly being sponsored by Helix Sleep, and we'll let you know a little bit more about them a little bit later. Today, we have a great show for y'all.
It's something that we've been actually really looking forward to. We're talking about Jennette McCurdy's new book.
It just came out a week ago at the time we're recording this, at the time that this episode premieres. It should be out like 2 weeks by now.
It's called 1, 2, 3. I'm glad I killed my mom. My mom died.
Giving a whole new meaning to Alastair's alternative facts. We are reading Jennette McCurdy's new book, I'm Glad I Murdered My Mother.
No.
I'm glad my mom died. It was it's the new memoir by Jennette McCurdy. She are you familiar with Jennette McCurdy? I was really surprised that you picked this one. Alastair actually picked this one. You don't usually pick the celebrity memoirs, and I was really surprised that you picked this one and you sent it to me and you were like, we should cover this.
I don't know what was getting into me. I think I got into like the social media slam about it all, and it seemed like a very interesting topic because I had heard a couple years ago that she had retired from acting, right? And I thought that this was like an interesting, like it was something I've never seen, especially from a memoir perspective. And like, I'm not a fan, I think, of Jennette McCurdy's work, not because I don't like it, but because I've really not consumed it.
Yeah.
The way that maybe her fans have consumed it.
So you're her age. She was born in 92, just like you, and so she was playing younger. I guess the audience probably doesn't really. Most of our audience probably doesn't really know who Jennette McCurdy is either. Jennette McCurdy was I'm
not 30 yet, by the way.
A Nickelodeon child star who was on the hit show iCarly. It was one of like the big Nickelodeon shows that were out at the time. You know, we had Zoe 101, Victorious, iCarly. She played Sam Puckett. And so I watched iCarly a little bit, but I feel like I got even too old for it, like right as it started. So I like kind of grew out of it. It was very much a show that my sister was like super into. So my sister really liked it.
Well, because even though I think the actors were actually around our age, they played younger and they skewed younger for the audience. But those shows for Nickelodeon did pretty well.
Yeah.
All of those, Victoria's, Zoe 101.
iCarly was massive. It's even got a
iCarly.
reboot right now. It's got a reboot that's on Paramount Plus. They came back for it. She didn't return with the rest of them, but
She didn't, and she talks about it in the book a little bit too.
yeah.
About her decision to not do that.
She was a former child star. She started in the business really, really young. She had a stage mother, and that's what this whole book is about. It's kind of her experience going through Hollywood land, and really talking about. She talks about a lot of really intense subjects here. She talks about parental abuse,
Sexual assault,
bad relationships, eating disorder is a really big one. That's that's probably
OCD,
even the most prevalent one. There's just a lot. There's a lot of different things.
There's definitely a lot to unpack about it. And the thing is, like, Jennette McCurdy's book could read very sad.
But I think it read really funny to me.
She put a funny spin on her book and on her very unfortunate situations, where like she was like very raw about like what was happening, but also like I don't want to say she was lighthearted, but she framed it in a way that was super accessible for people and also made you want to consume more and didn't put you in a bad place.
I think her writing was really interesting too. Is that it wasn't? We've read a lot of memoirs for this show, and some of them that we haven't even done episodes on yet. But a lot of times, a celebrity will do a memoir or an autobiography, and they'll try to like make the language really flowery, and you can tell that they probably had like a ghostwriter in there with them or something like that.
Some nice adjectives,
trying to make it like a damn whole ass novel, a Danielle Steele novel, you know. And I really appreciate that Jennette McCurdy really keeps it like to the basics here, and that doesn't even mean that her writing's dulled down at all. Like it's really good. I think she's
a
really,
good writer.
She's a really good essayist, I think. I think these all read like really great essays, all compiled together that kind of like formed one bigger story. And she doesn't go out of her way to try to sound like somebody she's not. She very much like she comes through the book. You know, I guess. We did listen to it on Audible. We don't have the physical copy because the physical copy's been like sold out everywhere.
You know what?
So we had the benefit of
good for her. Her physical copies all sold out.
Yes.
And let me tell you right now that it's why'd you do that? It's not a shot. Let me tell you right now that it's so important that if you do want to support authors, pre-order their books.
Yeah.
Because stuff like this happens and they get sold out. And right now we have our local Barnes and Noble. We have one copy on reserve when it comes in.
Because I want a physical copy. I want to put it on the shelf. But we had the benefit of listening to it on Audible, and we heard her. So like, yes. I wonder if other people read it the way we heard it, because the way we heard it, she's really great at narrating her own book. Like she does a fantastic job.
Honestly, she is a very good audiobook narrator. But obviously, she's trained to be an actress and. She's trained into being able to like do stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it makes sense when you are an actor or a creative person at some point and you transition like that. And let me tell you, I'm so grateful whenever we have a memoir where it's narrated by the actual
But sometimes
person.
It gets really sketchy, though. So I love Mob Wives. I love Mob Wives. And Karen Gravano, who Sammy the Bull's daughter, she wrote a book called Mob Daughter, and she narrated her own, and I got that on Audible, and I was listening to it, and she is struggling. She is struggling to read that book, and she is very much the person who I'm like talking about when I say she's trying to like
make it flowery.
The way she doesn't talk, you know. So there's like a line in there somewhere where she's like, my mother roused the children from their slumber as the sun came up, and it's like, just tell us what happened, right? Like, don't try to
keep
paint
it to the facts.
Yeah, you're not doing White Oleander here. This book did remind me of a little bit of White Oleander, actually. Just the kind of growing up story that sort of happens, the coming of age story that this is, because this is a coming of age story as well.
It is a coming of age story, and I also really like when we, especially like listen to Hollywood memoirs, where it like really pulls back the curtain of what it is like for those people. Like another really good Hollywood memoir that we've loved, we haven't covered it at all, is Inside Out by Demi Moore. And she has a gorgeous voice too, and she narrates it herself.
Did we listen to that one?
We listened to it, yeah.
I don't remember that. Mm-hmm.
And she has such a husky voice.
Yeah.
And I really like when we read it and they peel back. And one thing that kind of resonated between Demi Moore's memoir and Jennette McCurdy's is they both had issues with food.
They both have issues with food, and they both had issues with their mothers.
But it definitely is a memoir that's very focused on that relationship, because it doesn't end until I think in her mind that relationship ends, because we're not reading this book up until 2020, 2022. I'm pretty sure it stops around 2018.
It's
when she accepts that, like, not accepts, but like finally lets completely go of her mother and her hold on her life.
Yeah, she retired from acting like late 2010s. Yeah, like late 2010s. And ever since then, she's been doing various things. She has like a podcast where she's already talked about like this story, just not in as great a detail, but she has other guests come on, other child stars, other people in the industry, and she just has a podcast and she talks with them. It's a really, really great podcast, actually.
And she also writes for some publications as well.
So she's like, this is a really great creative outlet for her. I think it's just the age-old story of the stage parent, right? And I think she very much opens like that. Jennette's mother is a stage parent. Her mom is how old is she when she starts going into 6 years old? She starts going into auditions. Her mom's like dragging her around Hollywood and like taking her to agents and auditions and into acting classes and all of these different things, and really like forcing an identity onto her daughter rather than letting her daughter find her own identity. And we see that all the time. There's a lot of actors that we know nowadays that started out really, really young. Sarah Michelle Gellar started out as a child. Mm-hmm. I feel like a child does not, you could say, I said it all the time when I was a kid, I wanted to be an actor, I wanted to be in movies and stuff like that. Like, we know we can do that, but as a child, you don't know what all of that entails. You're not taking yourself to the auditions. Your parent is doing that, and some parents, it seems like Sarah's mother was maybe, one of the better ones who didn't really traumatize her with stuff like, or she's never spoken about it. But then there was Brooke Shields' mother. Like, Brooke Shields, do you know Brooke Shields? She was in Playboy at 13 years old. Yep. And her mother signed off on that and everything. She was completely okay with that. Basically, pimped her daughter out to Hollywood, and it just, there's just no real, even stories that are not that extreme, like stories that may be, like the kids who go on these Nickelodeon shows and these Disney shows, the amount that they work, they're workhorses,
So honestly, one thing that actually shocked me is just to say real quick, is she said she wasn't going to get any residuals off of iCarly. Mm-hmm. I was shocked by that. I thought that they were getting residuals off of the Nickelodeon shows, and the fact that they weren't, I don't know how that even. I don't
understand how that works either.
Yeah,
because I thought they did.
I thought they did too, but I think it has to be some sort of like legal finesse. So what I see in terms of Jennette McCurdy and her mother, and this is just my observations, is two things. One, you can tell that Jennette McCurdy's mother doesn't have a close relationship with her husband. And she instead forms a very close relationship with this young girl and kind of treats her as her other person instead of having her other person be another, her husband in her life.
Well, that's one way that she's abusing her daughter. She's treating her daughter as like a daughter. She's treating her like the family breadwinner. She's treating her like a puppet. She's treating her like a best friend that she confides things that this child shouldn't know about. Like, she's doing all of those things, and really making this child like the center of the family's world. But she's also like, she's also pushing her other kids into acting too, right? She like tries to do that.
She does, but she doesn't. I think that with Jennette, she seems to see herself in all of what she could have been.
Yes.
And with her other kids, if they find success, good for them. But who really matters is Jennette.
Yeah, making sure Jennette is going to be the successful one. They all live together in a house. The grandparents live with them too, right? Mm-hmm. And they're all living in this house that the father's parents own, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and so they're not making a whole bunch of money. I think the dad works at Home Depot and
I think he worked at like two different,
like Blockbuster and Home Depot at the same time. So they're not making a whole bunch of money. The mom is, they're religious. They kind of religious. They take them to church, but
they're conveniently religious.
Conveniently religious. We all know people like that,
Yeah.
right? You go to, when you need something, you're praying your ass off and you're getting yourself into the church. The mom, pretty early on, we learned had cancer at one point, and that plays a big role throughout the rest of Jennette's life, or like a big chunk of her life, because she's always like complaining about her illnesses and like playing up the cancer card. The mother's always telling everybody, yeah, I have cancer this, or I'm a cancer survivor, or
I can't be doing this.
Yeah, I have this illness because I had cancer this one time, or like really playing it up for pity. She's like really milking that she had cancer.
Though, you know what? She still died from cancer, so like
She ends up dying from
she really had the ability to play that pity card.
She had the ability to play the pity card, but also like did it in, I think everything she does is kind of, she does in a manipulative way. Her mom is like micromanaging everything about her, you know. She flies off the handle if Jennette has a different flavor favorite flavor ice cream. Like
Yes.
Jennette at one point doesn't want coconut flavor ice cream. She wants like cookies and cream. And the mom like starts crying and or like getting upset, acting like she's getting upset. So Jennette like wants to make her happy and knows all of her mother's triggers and knows what kind of mannerisms her mom has, what faces she makes, what kind of her mood shifts are, and Jennette knows how to fall in line and make her mom go back into like a happy place, because she doesn't want her mom to be angry or sad or...
Which is interesting, because we see this throughout, that her mother not only doesn't want her to grow, but also doesn't want her other kids, her other two boys to grow. And she does some pretty disgusting things because of that, like to try to keep them young in her mind and to kind of infantilize them throughout the book.
She wants them. She's very adamant that she wants everybody to stay young. She wants Jennette to stay young, and even not only for just herself, but because like Jennette staying young, she's getting roles from that, right? There's more opportunities for her to play like younger characters, and so they want her to stay really young. Her mom wipes her ass until she's like 10 years old. I thought was really weird, and she like insists on it. Jennette's like, well, I could do that myself, and the mom's like, no, I have to do it until you're at least 10 years old. The mom showers Jennette herself and her son.
And her son or sons. I know she specifically talked about one of her brothers who was still 16 years old and was made to shower with her, who's like, I think
Jennette.
around...
She made Jennette and her brother Scotty
shower together.
And Jennette recalls that experience and is like, it was really uncomfortable because, you know, we didn't want to be showering together, so we wouldn't look at each
face
other.
away.
We kind of would face away, but mom insisted on showering us together, and it's like the mother has them so trained that if they don't just go along with what she wants,
it's a whole breakdown.
It's a whole breakdown, and they really would rather just avoid the breakdown, and so they just do whatever she wants. Her mom showers her until she's like 17 years old, you know, and she does body part examinations and checks, like she's checking her private parts and making sure that her private parts are not growing.
This is another instance of both infantilization and like something actually truly disgusting.
Yeah.
You know, Jennette is concerned when she starts going through puberty and she starts seeing that her breasts are developing, and she thinks it's breast cancer because of her mom having breast cancer. And she goes to her mom feels it, and she's like, no, you're just actually just growing. Mm-hmm. And she's like, how can I make it stop? And she tells her daughter to start, you know, reducing calories.
The way she says it, she kind of laughs like and makes it a joke, and she's like, I'll tell you the secret to keep your breast from growing. You need to start counting calories, and we'll do this together. And so they start doing this together. So it turns into a whole eating disorder where doctors are concerned that
she's taught an eating disorder.
Yes, and doctors are concerned that Jennette is anorexic. The people at her acting class are concerned that Jennette's anorexic. They all bring this up to her. Meanwhile, the mom is actively counting calories with Jennette, because the mom has the eating disorder as well, right? Mm-hmm. And so the mom then teaches that to Jennette, and they're doing it together, and they're counting calories in the evening, and they're planning out their diets, and they're planning out this, that, and the other. And Jennette is developing OCD because she's got so much anxiety and she's so on edge all the time. And because they're like pseudo-religious, they don't really practice it, and they don't go all that often, but it's always beat into her head that God this, God that, God that. And so Jennette is like actively waiting for the Holy Spirit to speak to her. And she's waiting for a long time for this. And when it finally does, the Holy Spirit tells her to start like going into the bathroom and touching her waistband 5 times and closing the door 5 times and like doing things like that. And so OCD develops. And so in addition to the eating disorder, she's also got this OCD that's feeding into that as well. So she's got to like weigh herself 5 times and all of these different things that just at such a young age.
It's also her mentality developing ways to deal with everything that's going on around her. And then her mother uses that excuse to be able to check her for the rest of, until she's about 17. And she's going to all of these. Meanwhile, she's going to all of these casting calls, and what must be so terrible for especially little kids is going to all of these things and being told you're not good enough.
Yeah.
You're not pretty enough, or you're not ugly enough, or you're not this, you're not that. And then
and it always seems like that, right? That there's always something that you're just not that makes you not right for the part. And a child is not going to understand that they are looking for a very specific thing that fits within their story, right? Like we as adults can kind of understand that. And it's still kind of messed up when you're like, your just child is not pretty enough. But like that's what the casting directors are there to do. They're there to find the perfect person for their story and for their project. But a child does not understand that. A child is just hearing, oh, you're not pretty enough, you're not this enough. And so Jennette spends all of her time wanting to be pretty enough, wanting to be perfect enough, wanting to be agreeable,
wanting to be young,
wanting to be the good sport, and she like tries to find her own it factor and develop her own it factor. There's even one point where her mom calls a casting agent because there's some movie that they really wanted her to get an audition for, and the casting agents didn't even put her out for it. And so the mom calls them and she's like, why didn't you put my daughter forth? You put this person, this person, this person. And the casting agent says, well, Jennette's too pretty. She's actually too pretty.
Because they wanted
not what
her
we're
to
looking
play
for. She's not ugly
androgynous.
enough. She's not. Yeah.
They wanted her to play an androgynous character, and
so then she hears that, and she's like, "Well, I thought everybody's wanting me to be pretty, but now I'm not ugly enough." That's kind of a confidence booster, but still. And then you think about the person on the other end of that who got that role. Were they just ugly enough for that role? Is that what was beat into their head? And it's just this whole cycle of like these kids being put into these audition rooms, sitting in rows of seats with all of these other kids who are there for the same sorts of things. And these kids are trained from such an early age. If she's doing this at like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, she's looking at other kids and comparing herself to them.
Well, what I found really interesting about this early part of her life, because she does get into like the Hollywood of it all. And, because I didn't know about the whole principal actors and like the background actors. Like there were like 3 layers. Like one was like a kid actors who were just casted for the background. The second one was kid actors who had maybe like a small moment.
Yeah.
And the third was principal kid actors who could actually like act and have lines, And for the longest time, Jennette and her mother are working for her to be a principal actor.
Yeah. They're like really banking on this, and her mom's driving her out. It's like a far drive too, to all these auditions and to these like agencies and trying to get her daughter signed. And she's taking her on these long ass drives every day, really trying to make her daughter a star. Let's talk about Helix Sleep for a second, shall we?
Let's do it.
Yeah, Helix Sleep is sponsoring today's episode. As always, really thank you. And let's talk about our mattress, our wonderful Helix Sleep king size mattress, one of 2 that we have. Because we also have a queen size of the same exact mattress. We got the king size because we need more space for our French bulldog. Activities
or for the English bulldog. It's just been so nice for us to have this place to sleep. So it's honestly my favorite place in the house.
Helix is a premium mattress and a box company that makes beds to fit your unique sleep style. Helix knows that everybody is different and everybody has their own unique needs, and so they've made a sleep quiz that'll match you with your perfect mattress based on your needs. I am an all-over sleeper. Alastair is more of a side sleeper. He likes a firm mattress. I like, more medium. We took the quiz together and we got the midnight mattress. And one of the best parts about Helix is that they deliver the mattress right to your door for free. It comes rolled up in a box and is super easy to set up yourself. And if it makes you nervous to buy something online that you haven't tried, Helix has a 100-night sleep trial, so you get more than 3 months to make sure that you absolutely love it.
And if you don't, they'll pick it up for you and you'll get a full refund.
If you or somebody you know is in the market for a new mattress and you think that Helix sounds right for you, you can go to helixsleep.com/tequila where you can get up to $200 off of your mattress and
2 free pillows.
So Jennette really is trying to find her own it factor. As a child, she's trying to look for an it factor about herself, which is already super toxic anyway. And she learns that she can cry like better than anybody else. But like, how is she able to cry? Right?
Okay.
Is they have to like beat these horrible fucking like alternate scenarios into her head. Like, what if Grandpa was dying and was holding your stuffed animal or something like that? Or what if your brothers were dying? What if your brother could have died? And like, they're telling her these horrible things. Her mother is telling her these horrible things to get her to cry.
Well, and the acting coach.
And it ends up working, right? But like, at what cost is that Jennette's having to like play these scenarios that are not real in her head over and over again to make herself cry? But she does, and that becomes her thing, and that's the thing that like throughout Hollywood everybody's talking about is she's the kid who can cry, the girl who can cry, and she can cry on demand, and not just cry with. They make a very clear distinction that there's the criers like Dakota Fanning who can like have tears well up in your eyes, but you want to be the crier that has the tears streaking down your face, and Jennette can do that.
I can also do that.
Can you?
Yeah. Yes. I can cry.
Should we do a cry off at the end of this and see what memories?
I don't feel like crying right now.
What dark memories we can see? You can cry. I suspect that about you sometimes. I think you make yourself cry.
No, but I do cry a lot. I don't cry a lot because I'm a baby or anything. I cry a lot because I've watched sad movies.
It's not. It doesn't even have to be a sad movie. Just any movie. He will cry at any movie.
I will not. Anyways.
But at one point, so she goes into this audition and she's supposed to cry. Or was it an audition or is she filming something?
It was an audition.
Okay. And she is supposed to cry and she just cannot, like, there's just this wall that she's not able to do it. And she's been able to do it every other time, you know, and like whenever she can do it on cue, and then when the take is done, they tell her do it again, and she does it again. But for some reason, this time, this audition, she just cannot make herself cry, and so she's really beating herself up in her mind about this, and like, this is terrible. I really messed up this time. It's just really beating herself up, and so on the drive home, she tells her mom, and she doesn't even really mean to say it. She just kind of was thinking it, and it came out, and she says, I don't really want to be an actor. I don't want to act anymore. And the mom has this like almost like at this beginning of a full meltdown where she starts hitting the steering wheel, she starts crying, and she's like, you're so good at it, and like making Jennette feel bad, so that Jennette is like,
she completely takes it back.
And she's like, I was just kidding. I'm just kidding. No. I'm fine. And that's what her mother does, like with everything. She's always making her feel bad. If she's always using these manipulation tactics on her kids. And so I wonder with her mother, like there's clearly something wrong with her mother in this book. Like mental health wise, she's clearly got some mental health issues of her own.
Oh yeah, so I've actually been thinking about this a lot, and I'm kind of curious about how her mother grew up.
Well, that's what I was thinking too, because her mom learned it from somewhere. It seems like her mom learned this tactic from somewhere.
But if you recall, the grandmother is also very manipulative.
Was the grandmother her mother, or is that his mother?
I think it's her mother.
However, okay, so she learned it from somewhere, because it seems like she does this so often, and she does this just without even thinking, that like these manipulation tactics that I don't even know if she realized that she was doing it, or that it was bad, or that it was in any way, shape, or form wrong that she was doing that. I think she just did it, and that was her natural instinct to do that. And because I think she just learned early on that that's how you get your way, right? Is that you just kind of do that. And there's never any sort of reckoning. There's never any sort of like come to Jesus understanding moment where anybody tells her like, you can't do that. You need to, this is wrong. This is wrong. It would have been wonderful for Jennette to like have gone to therapy and brought her mom. But I think even if that would have happened, the mom would have been like, turned it back around and started crying or something like that. I just think there was no way out for Jennette.
Especially at this point, like your entire life is dictated by this, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you become the breadwinner at that age, everything is just very much reliant on you. And you can tell at this point, especially as a child, she gains her happiness from her mother's happiness.
Yes.
You know?
And that's so sad.
She's very
because
emotionally linked
she's
to her
always
mother.
trying to get her. This is a perfect through line. Is she in turn learns how to manipulate her own mother because she learns how to manipulate her mother into a good mood, right? Because she doesn't want to see her mom have a breakdown. She wants to avoid the breakdown. So she knows how to kind of manipulate and change, her whole attitude, like put on the bright smile and like get her mom, hey, mom, play that CD we really like. We'll sing together, And so it's learned behavior, it's cyclical.
Cyclic? I don't know.
This ain't the brain podcast, guys.
It happens.
It's generation to generation, and I think it is learned. So Jennette ends up booking iCarly when she's like, I'm assuming like 13, 14, 15
at
years
14?
old. I think 14. Okay, yeah. So
Yeah, it's a very big deal.
it is a big
because
deal.
it's the first time she's getting to be a series regular on a show. She's not getting royalties though.
And this show was created by Dan Schneider. And at the time, Dan Schneider was like king of Nickelodeon. Like he was creating all of these shows that were just so big and that could not fail. And Miranda Cosgrove, this was Miranda Cosgrove's like starring vehicle show. She came off of Drake and Josh. And when Drake and Josh ended, like they knew they were going to give her her own show. She was like the darling of Nickelodeon at the time.
She was on Drake and Josh.
Oh, Megan? Yes. Did you watch Drake and Josh?
No.
No. That was our age. That was
I didn't watch
that was us. What were you watching? Telenovelas?
I watched Chavo del Ocho.
Okay.
I watched Dragon Ball Z.
What about Drake and Josh?
Project Gotham.
What is? How do you say
No,
Drake and
that
Josh
was the
in
thing.
Spanish with the accent?
Raque y Josh.
Yeah. So Miranda Cosgrove
Jose.
was like the darling of
Josh,
Nickelodeon, and so she gets iCarly, and then Jennette McCurdy gets cast on iCarly. So it's instantly like this really, really big show, And this show gives her family financial stability. They're able to pay their bills. They don't have to like miss any payments. The mom is always up to date on her payments. The mom will take Miranda's salary, or not Miranda. The mom's taking Miranda's salary. The mom's taking Jennette's salary, and putting it towards bills and everything they need, and like really like keeping themselves afloat and comfortable. And then Jennette gets like the scraps, right? And she gets to go off and like spend her money on
She does get she does get little of it.
Mm-hmm.
However, unlike a lot of like issues between child stars and their parents, there doesn't seem to be as much financial strain. There does seem to be a little bit of financial strain and like financial expectancy, but it doesn't seem to be like a cornerstone of their relationship, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
Like it doesn't seem like Jennette resents her mother for finances, more so for how her mother manipulated her. Also, let's talk about the fact that at this point, Jennette has gained all of her emotional stability or emotional instability, however you can put that, through her relationship with her mother and maybe a somewhat relationship with her family, but she doesn't seem as connected with her siblings. She definitely doesn't seem as connected with her father. She talks about that a lot.
Oh yeah, the father's like a big one. Is like she does have a dad, and her dad is in her life, but she does remark that her dad is
He doesn't spell
just
her
like
name
there,
right.
but very absent, right? Like he doesn't have really any involvement with them. He doesn't really like bond with them or anything like that. I related to that one a lot actually, because my dad was always there, unless like we were in and out of the house. My dad was there,
But he wasn't there.
but like I never would bond with my dad. The only times I ever bonded with my dad was when he would take me to see like scary movies, and that's where my love of scary movies came from. But like we never did anything, he didn't teach me how to like play ball or anything like that. He didn't teach me how to play football. He didn't really take any interest in anything we would do, and I get that. I totally understand that. And Jennette's brothers, I think, which one was the one that her mom said, oh, like she actively told him, you're not my favorite. You're my least favorite, or
I don't remember honestly in terms of like her brothers, but there definitely seems to be like a disconnect family wise. Also, she's like her mother's favorite. Her mother devotes all of her attention with her. So there's obviously going to be a disconnect with your siblings if something like that happens. So when she does move to iCarly and she surrounds herself with a regular cast, that starts becoming kind of a found family.
Yeah, she's like a chosen family.
Yeah, where she can get emotional stability in a circle that isn't her mom.
She develops a really close friendship with Miranda Cosgrove. Like during the filming of the pilot, she really wants to be friends with Miranda. She doesn't have any friends. That's the thing. She doesn't have friends like outside of her mother. She's always with her mother. And so when she finally gets cast on this project, Miranda sends her this gift basket with like $100 gift card to the movies, and like different things. And Jennette sends her gift basket back, but it's like a journal and like a stuffed animal because her mom won't let her get anything else. She really wants to, she's like yearning for this friendship with somebody. This is the only other girl on the cast. They're like the two main girls acting together. And she really wants to be friends with her. And so finally they start chatting on like AOL Messenger, AOL Messenger.
AOL.
And they develop a friendship, and they develop a really close friendship. And that's actually my favorite part of the whole book, is seeing their friendship throughout.
Yeah, I didn't know how close they actually were, because
I didn't either.
I always see like, especially, and I feel like there's a Hollywood stigma in terms of like women who act together who aren't like actually friendly towards each other.
There's always reports about that, right?
Yeah,
It's like
there's always reports
There's
about
always
something like
on-set
that.
beef, and it just seems like, from interviews and from this book and from, it just seems like Miranda Cosgrove is just a really good person, and genuine.
And they still have a very good friendship at this point.
She develops this friendship with Miranda, even though the mom is kind of discouraging that. She doesn't really want her daughter having this friendship with Miranda.
She's not a Christian.
I didn't realize that Miranda Cosgrove was cussing on set.
She really said she's not a Christian.
So Jennette McCurdy was making about I read from the internet that Jennette McCurdy was making about $50,000 an episode for iCarly. So and there was 97 episodes. So she would have made throughout the series about $4,850,000 off of iCarly, her iCarly salary. Now we learned that Jennette has like this whole team of people, and I don't understand why she has so many people.
Well, she doesn't understand why she has so many
two
people.
managers, like two agents, like doubles of everything
PR
that you would have,
people.
right? Yeah, and it's like doubles of everything. It's not just one person. Because I totally understand that, like, these people, these actors need these people in their lives, because these are the people who have the know-how to put out, to put you up for roles and to call like producers and to like, they know how to operate this business, and they have all of the connections. And so you need somebody like that. But then a huge chunk of your paycheck is going to, most people just have, singles of those. What?
I'm just having an epiphany right
Are you having an epiphany? What is your epiphany?
Gosh, what was the actress from Euphoria who was just talking about
Sydney
this
Sweeney, this is what I'm leading into. Yes.
Okay, so we're having an epiphany about the same thing. Okay.
So these people need like a team, right? But then you think about like, so for almost $5 million that she would have made during the course of the series on iCarly, that being divided up however many ways, plus like the taxes you have to pay on that. It just like, they were comfortable, but she wasn't, truckloads of money. It just wasn't like that. Sydney Sweeney, who's in Euphoria, actually, she was in White Lotus as well, actually did an article not too long ago where she was talking about this, and she was like, yeah, I can't. And a lot of people took it like they were reading the headlines and taking it more as
she's complaining
about this, but she was just
not
being
being able
honest.
to take 6 months off of work.
She was just being honest. She's like, yeah, I can't really take 6 months off of acting because
I can't do that
I have
either.
to pay my mortgage. I have to pay like these things, and like by the time I get my paycheck from doing these projects from a project, it gets divided up so many ways that I don't have enough that like I have to always be working,
Well,
and I thought that was like such a breath of fresh air that she would say that, and she would come out and like speak about that, because I'm always curious about the money stuff, right?
So I'll be honest. I think that people take advantage of, and it's always like, oh, woe be me, because they're like actors and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do think people take advantage of the fact that they're like, oh yeah, you need a team, you need this, you need that.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they're like writing like a one sentence Twitter and getting paid like $250,000.
Yeah, like a lot of these people have social media managers who will go on and post on social media for them, and I'm just, in my brain as a YouTuber who cannot afford to like a team like that, right? I have to learn how to do everything myself, but that's such a big business that you can't learn how to do everything yourself, right? And then you have to show up on set, and then you have to like make sure you're there and you're acting and you're doing all of, or like as a musician, like you have a job to do. So you need people to do that stuff for you, right? To put you out for the roles and to like broker your deals and like. So it makes sense, but it's also like kind of mind blowing how much money they spend on teams, and the fact that she had 2 fucking managers and like doubles of all of her team.
I'll be honest, it's giving mini conservatorship.
A little bit. And she would like get on a call with all of them at the same time. They were always on a call together. They'd wait till like all 20 members were on the call with her and then give her like news and stuff like that. So she's on iCarly for about 6 seasons. And during that time, she is like still going through her eating disorder. She's really like watching her weight.
Going
She's
through anorexia, bulimia.
And her character, if you've ever seen iCarly, her character is like a really rough and tumble character. It's actually
Loves food.
who loves food. She's always eating. I feel like this was really fucked up of Dan Schneider, and I think Dan Schneider did this on purpose because Sam Puckett is who she played, and she's always eating. She's like from a rougher side of town. She's always trying to get in fights, and she has a horrible relationship with her own mother and is always talking about that. It seems like too on the nose to be a coincidence. And Dan Schneider is another like shady character in this whole thing because there's a lot of we'd have to
She doesn't name him. She calls him the creator.
the creator, but we all know she's talking about Dan Schneider. And Dan Schneider was actually like quietly removed from Nickelodeon not too long ago because there was just too many things. Do you know anything about Dan Schneider? Do you know any of these stories?
So I saw it like briefly when stuff was coming out, mostly about the feet stuff.
So there's like I think that was one of the ones that like just grabbed the headlines just because it was more salacious,
Weird.
right, and weird. But he has a lot of really shady like business practices and the kind of the way he tries to pit shows against shows and the cast members against cast members because it was very clear that he was pitting iCarly cast against like Victoria cast.
Kind of sounds like the boy band. Thing.
And so he also would like isolate certain stars. So like with iCarly, he would go and take Jennette and her mother out to lunch and would tell her, you know what, you were just like the best thing on the show. I see you winning an Oscar one day. How would you like your own show? We'll call it Just Puckett. I thought that was genius, by the way. Just Puckett. I was like, that would be a really funny name for a show. But he's like, at the end of iCarly, you know, we'll have to wait a while, but I think you deserve your own show. And so Jennette really like theorizes that he was doing this to kind of because he also follows it up with just make sure that you just stay under my wing. You listen to everything I say. You do everything I say to do. And that's the catch. And you'll have your own show in a couple of years. And so Jennette is like, this is his way of making me submissive, right? So that I'll fall in line. And I wonder if he's also telling this to the other cast members to kind of
she's very
pit us against each other.
Jennette knows when she's being manipulated at this point.
Dan Schneider is a shitty dude. And the way he treated children was awful. So, in this book, she says that he even like berated a 6-year-old or something like that, little guest star.
Yeah, he
and kicked him off the set.
Yeah.
In Zoe 101, there was a girl named Alexa Nicholas who was on the first season of Zoe 101, and she had a lot of tension with Jamie Lynn Spears, who was the star of the show, but like Alexa Nicholas was like, you know, played her best friend. So like they were pretty close there. And at one point, Alexa Nicholas says that she was being bullied by like Jamie Lynn Spears on set. And so she went up to the higher ups, to the heads of Nickelodeon, says, hey, I'm being bullied. Her mom says my daughter's being bullied. And Dan Schneider pulled her into a room by herself and like berated her and yelled at her and said, is this show called Alexa 101 or is it called Zoe 101? Is it called, it's not called your character, is it? You're not the star. So you need to shut up and you need to just go and get to work. Dan Schneider does that shit. That's the stuff that he does. So yeah, the feet stuff are also really weird and like more out there. But even behind the scenes, it gets seedier and seedier. There's a scene in here where he takes her to dinner. She's 18 years old and he's trying to like get her to start drinking with him. Yeah. And there's rumors on the Victoria cast with the Victoria. He says that the Victoria cast drink all the time, and that he wants the iCarly cast to start drinking. So there's rumors with the Victoria cast that there's one cast member specifically who Dan Schneider was probably giving alcohol to and like kind of getting him drunk all the time. And you just wonder like how deep does that go, and which kind of bigger names are keeping hush about it all, you know, because they maybe, I don't know, benefited the most and maybe
It's like
are
also-
not ready to talk about
also-
something like that.
Who let it happen? If their parents knew what was happening, but they let it happen anyways because they were scared about their kids not having the success. It's a really, and I think that maybe over time we'll hear more about this. Maybe there'll be like an actual expose on it at some point.
It's a really dark like road to go down. And Nickelodeon benched him at one point. I think. What were you saying about he wasn't allowed on set, right?
Yeah, no, he wasn't allowed on the sound stage. Like he was like in the background of it for a little bit when she was filming Sam and Cat with her co-star Ariana Grande. Because remember, we just talked about Just Puckett.
Yeah, she did 6 seasons of iCarly, and she didn't get her own show, Just Puckett, like she was supposed to. She instead got paired with Ariana Grande from Victorious.
Who I'm sure was told was going to get her own show.
Probably.
And he was like, 2 stones, 1 bus. However the saying goes. What I really liked about how Jennette McCurdy talks about this stuff is she's like very frank about it.
Yes. Yeah.
She talks very frankly, and it doesn't seem malicious at all, about her jealousy towards Ariana Grande and how Ariana Grande was treated on the show versus how she was treated. Because Ariana Grande was, she was on Victorious, right?
Yeah, she was on Victorious, and she had already come from money. Like Ariana Grande came from she did not come from humble upbringings. She had a fairly good shot in this business, and she could sing really well. And so like her career trajectory is already starting to skyrocket, right? Like it's already while she's on the Sam and Cat show.
And she's going more music than anything else. So she's like doing performances, getting time off to do performances. There was one episode where she was like in a box the entire time, and Jennette had to like act towards the box
because Ariana Grande was performing at the Billboard Music Awards, and so Jennette McCurdy is like really honest about it, and she's like, I was pissed because I'm having to act opposite this box, and I have to turn down movies because I have to do this show. But meanwhile, Ariana Grande is like, they write her whole damn character into a box so she can go and do whatever she wants. And I think I agree with you that I really enjoy the way Jennette talks about stuff like that, because she's not vilifying Ariana Grande. She's like being very honest that like,
she wasn't.
I was coming to this
respect.
Boiling point, right?
Yeah.
And I was really upset, and I was not being given. I was not being treated fairly. I didn't have the show I was supposed to have. I was supposed to have this directing episode that they didn't give me. That I was supposed to be able to direct one episode of this entire 35 episodes, and they took that away from me too. And my mom had always...
That was a big thing too. Oh my gosh. Because she wanted to kind of like step out of where she was at.
Yeah, I mean, and she's an adult now. She wants different opportunities. And so she says that she is just, had always been taught by her mother to be agreeable, be the good sport, go along with it, really like just do what they want you to do and don't be difficult. You don't want to be labeled difficult, right? And Jennette McCurdy starts to like buck against this now, and she's like starts to be resentful towards having to be the good girl on set, and being treated this way, and she starts to become resentful of her mother. This is like really the time period where she starts really resenting how her mother kind of like plays victim all the time.
Really, her mother decides for her that she's going to use this time to become a country music star. And so she flies out to Nashville, and she starts recording for labels and stuff like that. And her mother's in a very emotional state because we find out that her mother, the cancer is back at this point.
Yeah.
So she's not for the first time in Jennette McCurdy's life, she's not going to be stuck to her mother. And this is like kind of exciting, kind of scary for her. And the resentment really grows, and her anorexia without her mother there turns into binge eating / bulimia disorder. And this is when we really see her recognize the harm that her mother's done.
Well, she starts because she is separated from her mother, and she's starting to grow up, and she's becoming an adult, and she's able to sort of start seeing that this annoys me about my mom, this annoys me about my mom, this annoys me about my mom, and she maybe cannot really articulate why it's annoying her that her mom is like counting her calories, or like telling her she's fat, or like telling her she looks chunky on this trip or that trip. She can't really like... She's not there yet at the point of understanding why she's feeling resentment towards her mom. She just is. It just is a state of being, And it seems like every time she starts to have a little bit of understanding of her own self and her own identity, because remember, she started as a child star who was, an identity was put on her. She doesn't know her identity. So she's like little by little starting to figure it out. And when she starts doing that, then something negative always happens, right? And so there's that cause and effect that starts to scare her, and that, she goes off, she starts doing her own thing. She's flying back and forth between filming iCarly and on tour and promoting a music career, and she's like working all the time. And it's positive work because she's getting to do some stuff she wants to do and off on her own. But then because she does that, her mom gets cancer, and it's like this really bad cause and effect that makes her feel a lot of guilt,
Well, and during this time, she also has like very, I'd say, interesting relationships. She had a relationship with a man who worked on iCarly.
That one was so weird too. She
It
was like
weird.
18 or 19 years old, and there was a crew member on iCarly who was like 32 years old, and he was married. He'd been married for like 5 years, and he like starts an affair with Jennette McCurdy. I didn't understand in the hotel part. There's a part where they go to a hotel together, and he like flops back on the bed and like covers his face, and he's like, 5 years of marriage down the tubes. Like, so did he leave his wife for Jennette?
Yeah,
Is that what happened?
They were having an affair, and then he left his
Okay.
wife for Jennette, and he tried to use that as leverage to get Jennette to lose her virginity to him. And she said,
He's like, why am I
No.
doing this if you don't even sleep with me? You don't even have sex with me. You won't even do this. And she's like, I'm just not ready for that. And he's like, you won't even give me a blowjob. What about a blowjob at least? And so she finally does that and starts, giving him something, a little bit of oral sex, because she wants to keep him, right? Like, she doesn't want to let him go. And she's also like using this relationship to sneak around, because she usually, I love this, that she has like 2 sleepovers like a month with Miranda Cosgrove, and they just have like sleepovers together. And one of those sleepovers, she doesn't really go to Miranda Cosgrove's house. She tells her mom she's going to do that, and she like leaves to go off with this guy. And the mom is like, "You're a liar. I don't know what you're doing, but I'm going to figure it out.
"It's like you're a whore.
You're a whore, aren't you?"
Well, it's interesting because it's every time that she grows close to another man,
Another
who
person,
isn't a
just
gay
in
man.
general. Yeah.
So there's also one incident where Jennette McCurdy and her boyfriend decide to go to Hawaii, and so she plays it as she's going to Hawaii with her gay friend, right? She's like, "Oh, look,
Is that what she said? I don't know why she was
Yes.
going to Hawaii. You know what I found so really cool though is that Nickelodeon gives all of the stars like a week's paid vacation to Hawaii, just as part of their contract.
Oh, was that really it?
Yes, that
Yeah.
came from Nickelodeon. It was like paid for by Nickelodeon. So she takes the fucking iCarly crew member that she's dating, the damn 32-year-old. And they're like paddleboarding at the beach one day, and they notice a paparazzi, and then like very next day, just pictures all over the internet of Jennette McCurdy and this older man.
And she has like so many missed calls from her mother.
Oh, she checks her phone. She
and
goes
her
back to
mother's
the
like,
beach.
"You're a whore.
She's like, "You're a whore.
You're not a Christian.
You're not a Christian." And she's like, I'm gonna write this letter, and I'm gonna post it on this Jennette McCurdy fan site.
And she does it, too.
She said, "You don't deserve your fans. I should have all of your fans. I'm gonna take your fans. You know what? If I join Vine, I'm funnier than you. They'll love me."
Why does this remind me of the witch episode of Buffy?
Oh my gosh, God! But like, she actually does it too. She like Jennette McCurdy, sure enough, goes to like the Jennette McCurdy fan website, and there's like a big scathing message from her mother there that's like, "Jennette's a whore." And Jennette just like goes in full spiral. She's like, she just she can't do anything. Maybe it's not a good decision for her to go and gallivant with this
32-year-old.
32-year-old iCarly crew member.
She's getting
But
to make
it's-
her own decisions.
She's an adult, and she is making her own decisions, and that's her decision to make, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't have any fault here. So, but her mother is just like so irate with her about this, right?
She moves into her first flat.
Her house. It's a house.
Yes.
She gets a whole house. I saved it. You want to see it? You want to see her house?
I do want to see it. And while you bring it up,
She gets a 3-story, like, it's pretty.
that's nice.
It is
Well,
pretty.
and she kind of does it because she's like, that's what you do, when you become successful. She gets a house, and
Because
she's,
everybody tells her it's like a good investment, right? You need an
yeah,
investment property.
that
But
it's
then immediately.
turnkey, and it's not turnkey. Let me tell you, we have some experience with that too. So we empathized, Jennette
When you
McCurdy.
move in and you just have all these problems that you immediately
Oh my
have to
gosh.
start fixing. I loved that
And
house,
it-
baby,
and-
but it was a
And she was
lot.
right. Being a homeowner is like another job, really. But her mother, comes over once and she asks, "Hey, can I stay the night?" And she immediately has so much dread because she knows that if she says yes, that means that her mother's gonna move in with her, which is exactly what happens.
Yeah, and basically her mom just doesn't leave. Her mom just doesn't leave. Her mom but at this time, her mom is just getting sicker and sicker and sicker. She has this cancer, and it really is eating away at her. Her mom's definitely like playing it up for all the pity that she can get. But her mom dies.
Well, yeah, her mom dies. Her mom eventually moves out of the house because she has to be near her doctors. And then there are so many death scares really over the years.
She has like different seizures and such. There's one time where she ends up in a coma and they think she's gonna die. They think she has 48 hours or so, and so they're all sitting by her bed. Jennette is like spiraling into her eating disorder. She's like losing weight rapidly. Anything she eats, she'll like shovel food into her mouth and then throw it all back up. And it's really just she's abusing her body so much at this point, and it's so wild that even when her mom is in the coma, to wake her mom up, she says, "Mom, I'm finally at the perfect weight. I'm at," I don't remember what it was.
She said 80 something.
Yeah, 80 something pounds to try to wake her
crazy.
mother up, because she's like, if anything will wake mom up, it'll be me being at 80 something pounds.
The other one is when she actually goes cold. And it's like such a, I don't know, like I've definitely.
I wasn't expecting her mom to die at that point in the book. I was reading that chapter and it seemed so kind of casual that she was like, they were just sitting around her and then her mom just kind of like goes.
Well, she didn't think that she was going to die
At
either,
that moment, yeah.
because she was like, she just gotten up late for like, she was supposed to fly out to New York for Nickelodeon or something. And then her dad calls her and says, "Hey, your mom's going to pass." She was like, "Oh, she's not going to pass. You know, we've had these scares before."
But even then, you know what was funny is when she gets to the damn hospital and she's like sitting by her mother's bedside and she gets a text from some guy she's talking to, and he says, he says, I don't know, he's like, "Come over, baby," or something like that. And she's like, "I'm with my mom. She's really sick. She might pass." And he's like, "She's not gonna die, baby," or something like that. And then she dies, and he goes back to the text. She goes back to the text message and she replies, "She just did."
Yep.
I was like, oh my God. Like, that's the kind of humor in this. That's the really dark humor, but she's funny.
Yeah,
she's like delivering these like little anecdotes in such a way that it is comedy. Really dark comedy, but.
And even through the comedy, which is interesting is that you still feel the layers of emotion.
Yeah.
With that happen around this death. Like, she's not, especially even right now, honestly, I don't even think throughout the entire book she really villainizes her mom. She just like speaks very frankly, and this is the person that's meant the most in her life, but has also caused her the most harm at the same time, and you can see the conflict there.
And so shortly after her mother does die, she really does spiral hardcore into that eating disorder. You know, she's drinking. Her first time drinking is even, you know, she realizes she loves the feeling of being drunk and like being so carefree. And her first time drinking, she's like, "This is the best night of my life because I just completely was uninhibited, and it's the first time ever that I've been like that."
And you can tell she's young and drinking because she's like, "And I didn't even have hangovers for like the first 7 days I was drinking in a row."
They just like take shots and they're like, "I don't feel it."
I was like, "She gonna," because I was. You're I'm sorry, but if you ever start drinking, don't think that you're immediately going to get drunk from a shot.
Yeah,
like,
but the thing is, like, she'd been this big stress ball of anxiety her whole life, and she finally
she's letting go,
feels like happiness, and like it was able to do that. So she's like coping with all of her anxieties and everything in such the wrong ways, and her mom's not there, so she is really missing her mom, and she's not really understanding that her trauma ties to her mom and her abuse ties to her mom. You know, she like recognizes that something wasn't right with her mom and that her mom was not perfect, but she goes to a therapist at one point because she's dating this guy named Steven. He is why does she go to the therapist? He wants her to go to the therapist, right? Because of her eating disorder.
He wants her to go to the therapist.
Because he figures out that she's got an eating disorder, and so he asked her to go to the therapist. She goes to the therapist, and the therapist asking her different questions about her upbringing, and she starts asking her questions about her mom, and she's like, "My mom wasn't perfect, but my mom was," or no, she says, "My mom was perfect. My mom was perfect. There was nothing wrong with my mom, you know?"
She wasn't ready to face the reality yet.
And she tells the therapist the story about like her breasts coming in and her mom, you know, telling her to start counting calories to get rid of her breasts. And the therapist's like, "Yeah, that's not good." And so she like completely cuts that therapist out. She never goes back to that therapist again. But that is like starting a moment of like realization for her, because she ends up with another like kind of eating specialist. I don't remember what his name was. His job title.
I don't remember anymore, but I know he was an eating disorder
specialist. He was helping her like get over her eating disorder. And this one of the best parts, the takeaways that I got from this book, is actually came during that part where because I have an eating disorder. I've never told anybody this, but I have body dysmorphia.
We're not laughing at.
I
that was a
have
quote.
I definitely have an eating disorder. I'm not going to speak for you, but I feel like we might both have an eating disorder where we binge eat to hell.
We do.
When we stress eat, we sad eat, any sort of negative emotion, it's straight to food, and we definitely enable each other with that. And so where is it? It's about the slipping and sliding. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I
Okay.
recognize it.
So yeah, so the eating specialist tells her, and he's got this whole spiel, and she like doesn't really buy it. But then when he says it, she's like, something clicked, even though I didn't want it to click. That it's okay to slip up. It's okay to slip up. You just have to keep yourself from sliding, right? You have to recognize that that's a slip. It's a slip up. Whatever. Just try again. Okay. You just don't want to get into the point. And so this is kind of where I relate to it. Is like, if I'm trying not to binge eat and I end up having a moment where I binge eat to hell, that's just my slip up. But if I turn that into like a week straight of binge eating, that's my slide, and you don't want to do the slide.
Which is honestly like a mindset that I think that we've been in.
Yeah.
Like we've already slipped. We might as well slide.
They're like, well, we'll stop sliding next week, okay? There has to be an end of this slide at some point. No more slip and slide. And just like that was a real moment that I was like, I really took away from that. And I like wrote a whole note down about it. And I was like, yeah, I got to remember that. Because it is okay to slip up. Whatever you're trying to get over, nail biting, like it's okay to slip up. Just like you have to keep trying. You can't just like take that slip up, turn it into a slide and be like, well, I might as well not even try at this point. You have to keep going.
Which is a mindset that is hard to get away from.
So she's like getting herself together. She's getting her shit together. She's kind of beating this thing for a little bit. It seems like she's understanding, which is the kind of moment of realization for her, is that she's understanding now why she's got these eating disorder problems and and what she needs to do to kind of get over them. And she's like understanding that and taking that and using it into practice. Meanwhile, she's got this boyfriend who at some point decides to quit acting and decides that just Jesus is the way, and he becomes super fanatical about religion.
No, he is Jesus.
And then he believes he is Jesus.
He is Jesus.
This comes at she never gets a damn break, because this comes at right at the time where she learns that her dad is not her actual dad. He tells her.
That was such a wild twist too.
Out of nowhere, he's like, "Oh, I'm not your father. Actually, the three of you, my children, I'm none of your father." I was sitting there trying to do the math. I was like, "So I don't understand. They were married all of their lives? Was this three separate affairs?
Yeah.
Was it three different men? Was it the same man or open? I don't get it.
We do not really know. She doesn't. She was like, this is an intense thing that happened, which is still related to her mom, because it's something her mom kept from her. But it isn't something that she goes into as much as she does with everything else.
Yeah.
And the next one
she kind
will
of
be
has to just.
I'm glad I finally met my dad.
She kind of has to just brush this one off, because she's like, this is intense. And then she goes to her boyfriend Steven to tell him, and she's like, I need to tell you something. It's really big. And he's like, I have to tell you something. It's really big. She's like, just go first, because I promise you this one's bigger. And he's like, okay, I am Jesus Christ reincarnated. And she's like, fuck, I cannot even tell him about my. She's like, good luck to you. She's like, let somebody know about him. And then he ends up having to go into
finds him
to
help.
Go get help. She doesn't just abandon him, but he ends up going to get help. Gets put on lithium. He jokes about it. I can't believe I was Jesus, but ends up spiraling backwards himself. He refuses to work. He thinks that working is always a waste of his life. He sits around and smokes weed all the time. Meanwhile, she's making forward motion. She's making progress in her own backsliding, and they're just not compatible anymore. And so that's a relationship that just doesn't work.
It doesn't work, but I think that relationship, especially for her, served its purpose. Because sometimes you can have relationships in your life where it's less so it's a good place where you were at, not a place you still want to be at, Yeah. And I think she had that. And during this time that she was with him, I think she actually met him on set of her Netflix show.
Yeah, this was right after Sam and Cat, right? So she got it. She booked a Netflix show, and they were filming in Canada. And I think that's how they met.
Yeah, and they did 2 seasons of the Netflix show. And then, we were talking about, the whole team.
Oh my gosh! The whole team gets on a call,
and they're like, "Hey, they're not going to renew it for the 3rd season." And this was almost a relief for her because she was like, I'd already mentally made the decision that if they renewed it, I would stay for another third season. If they didn't, I was going to take a break from acting.
And she says,
which
so I
eventually
want to
turns
take
into retiring.
She says, I want to take a break from acting. And she kind of already knows that this is going to be her retirement. She doesn't want to do this anymore. And so they're like, oh, okay. And then not too long after this, they like drop her. And it seems like oh my God, we didn't even okay. So it seems like her team I guess this is for most Hollywood teams that they just want money, right? They're going to squeeze their star for money. Because we totally glossed over the fact that Nickelodeon was trying to offer her at the end of Sam and Cat $300,000 not to talk about her experiences with Nickelodeon.
Oh yeah.
Probably because of Dan Schneider, and her team was like really pushing her to take this money, and because they would have all got a cut of it, right? It would have been $300,000, and they're like, it's a lot of money, but divided how many ways and with how many taxes taken out of it, right? It would have been nothing. So that team just did not have her best interest
at heart.
It didn't, not at all, and they didn't care about her. And as soon as she's retired from acting, they just drop her, and she has to go get a new manager, right? One that probably she's got a single manager now, and she doesn't have to pay this entire fucking team for all of this stuff because they look at her as like this washed up child star who's not going to get to go and work anymore. And so I'm glad she retired because it seems like that was causing her a lot of stress. The Sam role really caused her a lot of stress. But she did get like a really good friendship out of it, and friendship with Miranda Cosgrove. I really love this whole friendship throughout this whole book. When I'm about to call her Sam, that would be terrible. Don't listen to this, Jennette. When Jennette decides she wants to go see her father, meet her real father, Miranda Cosgrove, helps her get ready for it and goes with her and is there when Jennette meets her father, and they talk about it. And when they're like riding around together when Jennette learns that her mom's going to die, and Miranda drives her over to the hospital. Like, Miranda's just seemed like a really good friend, Well,
when iCarly comes back, the reboot, Miranda is very much about having Jennette on board with it.
Yeah.
She's like, we're coming back. It's a whole new family. And I've talked to the executives, and we will be paid the same, which will be about approximately $300,000 per episode, which is interesting because
is it really per episode? Was that really what they said?
Okay, maybe let's redact that because I don't remember that.
See, as Alastair's alternative fact.
But that but that they were going to be offered the same amount of money per episode, and she was like, "Yeah, it was a good amount of money." But one, I did not want to go back to being another star on a sitcom that she did as a child, and two, she was already beyond it, and she didn't believe it was good for her mental
would have been
health.
backsliding for her at that point in her life and her career. She was making forward motion, and she had to continue on that forward motion. And if she recognized that taking that role would be backsliding, I was really proud of her in this moment on the phone with Miranda, because at this point, her and Miranda had kind of not fallen out, but they'd kind of grown apart a little bit. Yeah, they weren't as close as they used to be. And she tells Miranda straight up, I don't think that's good for my mental health. I don't think I'm going to do it. Just straight up and perfect. That's not her trying to people please. It's her looking out for herself, which is such a great point for somebody to get to, And I feel like we all got to get to that point, because I tend to say yes to a lot of people and say yes to a lot of things. And I feel bad if I don't say yes to things. And I've gotten to a point where I have started saying no, and no has to mean no, and don't push back on this. I've had a lot of conversations with a couple people about me saying no, and when I say no, that means no. She just I like that she ends the book with no sort of definitive, I'm better now, I'm great, because she still backslides a little bit, throughout the end of the book, and kind of there's a part on the airplane where she's, throwing up, and she kind of ends the book with, I am coming back around to the title, which is a really great place to kind of end the book, right? She comes back around to the title, and she's like, I loved my mother, and I really miss my mother sometimes, and sometimes I feel really guilty still, and I miss when my mom would be really happy, true happiness coming from my mother, because she was so fun, and all of these things that I miss about my mother and I love about my mother. But I'm glad my mom died.
Yeah.
Because if my mom didn't die, I would still be stuck in a cycle of abuse. I would still be anxious. I would still be all of these things that I didn't even recognize about myself. And now that my mom is not here, I am able to remove myself from that and see what was wrong, how I can change, how I can go forward. And it's better that my mom is not in my life. Right. And then there's just like a bunch of other stuff in this book too, where like the grandma is kind of the same way as the mother would call her and be like just kind of
manipulative,
really
yeah.
emotionally manipulative, and it just seems like she came from a cycle, and the cycle was just continuing. So
Which is like
we end the book when she's
no. I was saying I think that we're in a generation that is trying to break these cycles.
Yeah, I understand that, like all of these buzzwords like gaslighting and all of these words that like everybody just overuses sometimes is so annoying for people to hear, and it sounds like Twitter in real life. But this is language that we are like able to
Used to explain things that before weren't really
like I didn't know how to
verbalized.
explain things. Like the
Yes.
word gaslight is such a great descriptor of some of the things I've been through that I can use that, and I know what I'm talking about. Whereas before I would try to explain things, it would go in a circle and I didn't know what the hell I was talking about, right? Like we are having conversations about parental abuse, about like emotional abuse, about like eating disorders, all of that. All of these things are on the table now where they weren't always there, My mom is talking to me about abuse and some of the things maybe she went through in her life. And she's never talked to me about any of that stuff before, And now she's able to talk to me about that stuff because she's understanding that, because it's all on the table. Whereas for the last however many years of her life, it wasn't out there for her to understand or talk about,
It wasn't. It was like a generations of people who did not talk about things, and therefore they didn't know that other people were having similar experiences.
And so they learn something from their parent. They go off and do the same thing, and then their child, like it's that whole cycle, and it has to be broken at some point. And we are like in such a great place where we are talking about stuff like this, even though it seems annoying and it seems like pandering. It seems like everybody, nobody knows how to have an honest thought for themselves. It just is better for us to talk about this stuff, like when I did my daddy lessons, or what is it called? Daddy issues.
Daddy lessons.
Daddy lessons. Sorry.
Are you Beyonce?
I did my daddy issues video, and that was the first time I ever really talked about like the abuse I'd gone through and my relationship with my dad, because my dad was something I didn't really talk about all that often. And I kind of like anytime he would appear in my videos or anything, it was always like as him as part of the family unit. And I love my family and everything like that. Nothing bad to say about my family. Mm-hmm. But I went through this whole thing, like this whole life experience that I'd never talked about. And when I finally talked about it, it was like very freeing, and I got a lot of pushback from certain people in my family about that. And then I had
pushback from some people in the comments.
From people in the comments, and then I had other people like really, like more people really supportive, and like then sharing their experiences, right, and saying, I felt really bad when my dad died because I'd cut him off for like 10 years, but it was something that I needed to happen. And then like as I'm reading the end of this book, I'm like thinking about all of those people and all those people who are like, the best thing for me, for my life, was for my parent to die and be gone,
The thing is, I think that we're really breaking the family narrative where it was like, you have to love your family because they're your family. You're never going to be able to, have another family and all that stuff. And now we're recognizing that sometimes your family aren't people that you want to really associate with.
And
it's fine if you don't. It's fine if you do. You make that decision for yourself and your own mental health. And the thing is, at the end of the day, you are the person who makes a choice of whether to surround yourself with people that bring you joy and bring you love, or trigger you, really.
And I love that we are at a point of understanding in today's culture that you can choose your family that you were assigned to at birth. You don't have to stick with them. If they're not going to treat you right, if they're going to abuse you, if you don't feel valued by them or respected by them, you don't have to stick around. Your family, your parents have to give you the same respect that they demand from you. It has to be a mutual thing. And I just love this book. I love this book. I love that it talks about family trauma and it talks about parental abuse and it talks about eating disorders. And I'm so happy. I've been watching interviews about it and about her talking about, the reactions to the book. And her brothers are super on board with it. I wonder about her grandparents. But her brothers are super on board with it. And they're like really happy that she's telling her story and, putting it all out there.
And it's interesting because it's also like it's a story of recovery, but I never feel like I'm being talked to at.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's like, this is how I learned this. But she's talking about it as her own experience, not like, this is how you'll fix this.
Yes. Yeah.
And I really liked it. I think that she did such a good job writing this book. It was short and sweet. Honestly, if you're going to pick it up, it's a 6-hour listen, probably like a day read at the beach or whatever.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's poignant. And it has everything that you'd want, and it doesn't leave you feeling shitty.
I don't feel like we even did a great job like covering this. I wish we could have gone through all of the themes and everything. It was just we're already at like an hour and a half at this recording, and
are we breaking it up into 2 episodes?
I don't know what we're doing. We can't. I'm just gonna leave it in one episode. But it's just you have to go read it for yourself, and you have to tell us what you pulled from it, and if you were able to pull anything from it, because I really did pull so much that I relate to. The family trauma, the eating disorders, the body image. Like I may not have had the exact same experience as her, but I pulled so much from that and gleaned so much new understanding from this book. And so I'm like really proud of her, and I'm really happy that she wrote this book. What did you pull anything? What'd you get from this? I've been talking a lot about myself. What'd you get from this book?
I got a really excellent reading experience from the book. And it also let me recognize some of my own isms. No, not isms. I feel like isms is a bad word. It helped me recognize some of the ways I backtrack to myself and the ways I'm abusive to myself. And so that was very recognizable. And it made me really want to talk to it. I think it's a conversation starter, and I think it's a strong book. And I'm excited to see what comes next.
She has said in a recent interview promoting this book that she is open to coming back to acting again, and that she retired from acting at that time because it felt like the thing she needed to do at the time. It felt very final at that time, but now she says with the right sort of steps that she thinks she could come back. And
it's also like she associated it with trauma, right? So
yeah.
you got to take away the even food, and that's the thing. And I think it's such an interesting thing about like eating disorders is eating disorders aren't like something you can just quit.
Yeah.
You can't just quit.
It's going to be something she's going to be working on for the rest of her life. And she recognizes that, and she can act accordingly, and she might slip up. But it's all about not sliding.
As long as you're not sliding.
Don't be sliding. No slipping and sliding.
Okay.
Well, the camera's already cut off by now, so you're just listening to us. But let us know what you thought about this book. Did you read it? If you haven't, are you going to go pick it up? Definitely go pick it up. I'm Glad My Mother Died by Jennette McCurdy. We thank you all for sitting in with us. And
if you want, if you're watching us on YouTube, please leave a comment and a like. We would love that. If you are listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or any other podcasting platform, we would love if you'd leave us a rating and a review if you can. Thank you. We really, sorry, I'm getting emotional.
Are you just coughing? No,
I was just coughing.
He's the best crier in town. We all.
We all really, I mean, it's just you, me.
Yeah.
We really appreciate y'all's support, and I am looking forward to next time I'm back on Coffee and Tequila.
Yeah, he might be gone for a couple episodes, but he will be back, so we will see you next time.
Adios, gentle listeners.